Right. Hey, it's great to be back, right? Does anybody have any experience with imagery at all?
What is imagery?
I'm going to ask you that in a minute. Does anybody have any experience with imagery at all?
Coach told me to do it in the fall when I was hurt.
Oh, to help with injury.
Yeah, I'm just since I can practice to try to do that to help.
Okay, so what did you do?
I tried to imagine scenarios like in front of goal and then picture myself scoring and different stuff like that.
Okay, do you think it works? Or is it a bit cuckoo? Do you think it might work if you imagine things happening? Do you think if you imagine things happening, they will happen? Do you think? How about this? If you imagine things not happening or not doing well, do you think that that can work as well? So today we're going to talk about imagery. Great question. Who said what is imagery? Super question. What's your name?
Shelby.
Shelby, thank you for your question. So we could call imagery covert practice. We could call imagery mental rehearsal. Have you heard of those kind of phrases? We're just going to call it imagery. Okay? So when we talk about imagery, we're not just talking about visualization or visualization. We're using imagery as, and here it comes, simulation. It's kind of different, right? So who do you think uses imagery in your sport? Do you think high-level athletes use imagery? Do you think Mia Hamm might use imagery? Corey Lloyd might use imagery? This is the lady who plays up front, who's the model. Looks like Alex Morgan. Do you think Alex Morgan uses imagery? Well, we know they do. We know they use imagery. And because we know that the US national team at all levels have sports psychologists working with them. And I said to you last week that your mind and your brain can help control how you play. And so if we're going to spend all of our time practicing our physical skills, we need to practice our mental skills. And so this is one of the things that will separate you from being the player that you want to be. Okay? Because all the top level performers are using imagery to help them to be able to perform and help them to be able to prepare. It's quite likely that Alex Morgan is maybe a better player than anybody in this room, even your coach. If it's good enough for Alex Morgan,
which one?
it's probably, I was going to go for Becky.
Just kidding.
If it's good enough for Alex Morgan, it's probably good enough for us. But just like all of those other mental skills, all of our psychological skills, you have to kind of practice in order to get it to work for you. Okay? Has anybody done any mental imagery in the last couple of weeks? Put your hand up if you have. You went around. Oh, you went around? Yes or no? Put it up. Yeah, I made you do it, okay? Do we have a whiteboard underneath?
Yeah.
We do? Okay, so get out a pen or a piece of paper to make some notes. Okay, so the first thing we're going to make notes on, this is very hard. Is anybody really bad at art? Okay. You have to draw a cross. Okay? Try and draw a cross. Okay? We'll come back to the cross in a minute. But we'll fill this in as we go along. So, when do you think you would use imagery? The day before a game. Anybody else? The day before a game. Is that it?
Right before.
Right before a game. Okay? While you're injured, all right, do you kind of imagine your ACL repairing by itself? Okay? All right, whilst you're injured, what else?
During practice.
During practice, okay. What else? In the middle of class? Before a game, after a game, during a game, before practice, after practice? Thank you. After practice? Where do you think you should start your imagery? I've never done imagery before. I think it's a good idea because if it's good enough for Alex Morgan, it's good enough for me. So where should I start doing my imagery? Where should I start practicing it? You've got BYU in a couple of weeks, right? Or BYPoo, as I like to call them. I hate them, I can't help it. I mean, I was a Utah grad, you've got to hate BYU, right? So you've got BYU in a couple of weeks. Do you just think to yourself, right, okay, well, I've never tried imagery before, so I'm going to try it for the first time in the middle of a game. Good idea? Bad idea? Bad idea. Okay. So here's rule number one. When you start to practice imagery, you start at home. You practice it at home before you bring it anywhere near the field of play, either in practice or in a game. So start practicing at home. All right. So let's have a look here. I'm going to write some words. You can copy me. You can copy me. And I'm not going to make this too much like a class or anything like that, but it is a good idea that you understand how it can help you both from a cognitive perspective and from a motivational perspective. And you can become experienced at any one of these four different types of imagery. Okay? It's like being back in class, isn't it? Except nobody has an awesome professor like me. And if you're just going to remember one thing from today about the different types of imagery, that would be it. So let's have a look at them. So some imagery is going to help you with concentration, with self-confidence. Some imagery is going to help you with your motivation. They're different things. Some imagery is going to help you with your coping with injury. Make sense? You join this for me? Oh, you can speak up. You know, I'm sure you have a friend somewhere. Okay, all right. So let's run through these four different types of imagery to find out which ones that you think you can work on to prepare yourself for a game. So, the goal-orientated, motivation-specific imagery is this. Close your eyes. You've just beaten BYU 76-0 in the national final. And Brad Pitt is putting a gold medal around your neck. Okay? Make sense? You can open your eyes. That's goal-oriented, motivational imagery. I'm imagining winning and what it feels like to lift the trophy, win the game, have a medal around my neck. Make sense? So that's imagery type number one. Imagery type number two is to help you with general arousal. Okay? General arousal. This is general arousal. Close your eyes. You're on an island. You're feeling very relaxed. The sun is beating down. You can feel yourself sinking into the sand. All of your anxieties and all of your worries are disappearing. Yep. Get it? Open your eyes. Ever done that before? Ever done that before? When? Last time I was here, right? So I knew that you'd done imagery before because I worked it into our last session. So you have done some imagery before when you were imagining you're on an island. here are the two that are pretty interesting. With your skills and with your strategy. So, how many do you play with at the back? 4, 3, 2, 4? 4? So you don't really play with a 4, do you, really? You really play with a 2 in the middle. It's what the fullbacks do when you get the ball that becomes interesting. Does that make sense? So what do you want the fullbacks to do, Becky?
Go.
So do you just, you want them to go, so basically what do you tell them to do? Just stay level with the ball, something like that? Kinda?
Depends situationally, yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. So that's your strategy. So I'm a fullback. I'm going to imagine myself making a run, doing an overlapping run, and crossing the ball in after we've worked together as a team for me to get the ball. So I'm thinking about my strategy and how I fit in with the rest of the team. Make sense? We have the opposing team has a corner. Do you play zonally, or do you play man-to-man, or do you mix?
Man-to-man.
Okay, so you play man-to-man. So now, I can imagine the strategy happening in the penalty area of what my job is when I'm marking the other player. Whether I'm on the post, whether I play with one on the post, whether I'm the keeper, I can see everybody man-marking, I can see the movements happening around me. I know that if the ball comes into the box, then I'm going to get to the ball first before the other player, and that's my job. And I see it happening in front of me when the ball comes over. But I see the entire strategy of how we work together as a team. Get it? That's pretty tough. That's how you can use imagery to help you with strategy. The other interesting one is, how can I use imagery to help me with a certain skill? Keepers, hands up. All right, so here are our keepers. All right, maybe you're imagining somebody running up to take a penalty and you saving the ball. Maybe you're imagining somebody taking a corner and you run out, you knock over all of your defenders, and you grab that ball at its highest point and you bring it down in. Maybe that's the skill that you imagine. Maybe you imagine the ball coming in and you go get it, you make a save, and you immediately distribute the ball to the fullback. And you see it happening before it happens. Maybe you're the penalty taker. And you see yourself scoring a goal and putting the ball exactly where you want to put it. Make sense? Yeah. I'm going to ask you to consider a skill that you want to use imagery to help you with in a few minutes. So just kind of grab onto that skill and put it in your pocket. Make sense? All right. So that's the way in which imagery can help us. So now, for all of you non-goalkeeper types, we're going to take a penalty. Okay?
Okay.
Okay? All right, so close your eyes. And I want you to imagine what's happening when you take the penalty. Goalkeepers, you can close your eyes and you can imagine saving the penalty. All right, done it? You can open your eyes now. What did it look like? Was it amazing? What happened?
I just saw the ball back of the net. The goalie dove, but she was too slow.
Just too slow.
Yep. Crowd went wild.
The crowd went wild. Okay, like that. All right. Anything else? Anybody else that want to help, want to share? Or you can just leave me standing here like a lame duck. Okay. Logan, what did you think?
I pictured the keeper just jumping in the opposite direction, so I just had like a wide open net.
Okay, wide open net, and you just smashed it in. Okay. Now here's a question for you. When you did the imagery, how did you see it? Did you see it as though the camera was on the top of your head and all you saw was like a leg coming out? Did you see this? or something? Or did you see yourself in a movie where you saw yourself taking the penalty? Does that make sense? So where was the camera? Was it on the side of the field where somebody is videoing you and it shows you taking the penalty? Brad Pitt's on the camera, by the way, working it. Or did you see the camera on top of your head? The camera on top of your head is internal. Seeing the movie in time, as though you're a movie star, is external. Get it? Who saw it internally? Hands up. Oh, you went around. Whack it up
I
there.
saw both.
Okay, all right. Who saw external? So half and half, right? Who saw both? Make sense? It doesn't really matter whether you imagine your movements internally or externally. Some people will suggest that it's better to see things externally if you're in an open, skilled game like soccer where the environment changes all the time. That doesn't matter as much as the two words that I want you to write down now, which are vividness and control. Okay? Vividness and control. And we'll come back to vividness and control in a minute. Now let me explain to you how imagery works. There are different theories. One theory suggests that your brain is stupid. This is the one I like the best. This is my favorite theory. The brain is stupid. So when you spent some time imagining that you were taking the penalty and the keeper went the wrong way, which should never happen, because you kind of get a clue sometimes by the angle of the run-up, right, which way they're going to go. You know about that, right? Surely you're a keeper. So you would never go the wrong way. What was I talking about? Oh yeah, so you're imagining the penalty, and what happens is those same nerve endings that you have used to imagine what is happening, and here's the really cool thing. It's the same nerve endings the brain uses to innervate the muscles. So essentially, when you imagine that you've done something, here it comes, the brain thinks that you actually physically did it. That's pretty cool, right? So you never have to practice it anymore, ever. You can just imagine, practice, and you can say, Becky, I just practice. Okay? So that's one theory. Another theory links the use of the stimulus that you have and the response that you give in terms of your imagery. Another theory might say, well, the best thing about imagery is that it helps you with your movement patterns. And another theory might say, it just really helps you with your psychological skills. It helps you with your focus, your concentration, your motivation, your confidence, etc., etc. So there's different kind of theories. It doesn't really matter which one it kind of aligns with because we know that it works. So there is a story of a prisoner of war in the Second World War, I do believe. I can't remember his name, never met him. But he played golf. He was a golfer. And he got taken prisoner and put in a prisoner of war camp. Now this guy was a really keen amateur golfer. And he lived right by a golf course, and prior to the war, he would go off and play golf every day. You know golf, right? You know the guys, they kind of dress in really bright pastel kind of coloured pants, and they whatever. So this guy was captured. He had nothing in his day that would keep him going more than imagining playing golf at his home golf course when he got out. He knew the golf course so well, he would play the game in his mind every day to pass the time. Get it? Amateur golfer. Gets released, goes home, gets his golf bag, goes out to play, beats his best score by 15 shots. Hadn't hadn't played in 4 or 5 years, but used the power of his mind to help him when he was playing. So he imagined himself playing and his score went up. It's kind of wild, right? It's kind of wild. So we're going to get back to this, and I'm going to finish on with this in a few minutes. We're going to get back to this issue of vividness and control. Vividness is what you see, how well you can see it. Is the picture clear? Do you have complete clarity in what you're watching when you imagine? And the second thing, and this is really important, is can you control what you imagine? Get it? Can you control what you imagine? If you have vividness, where you use all of the senses, and if you have control of the image, then you can become an experienced imagery performer. And you've got to do it in real time. No slow motion. No fast motion. Okay? In real time. In real time. 10 minutes a day. Start at home. Bring it to the field. I'm always saying to the basketball people down there, you know, they get these people in and they go to the basketball games and they take a half-court shot. Yeah? And if they score the half-court shot, they get a ticket to Salt Lake on the plane, right? I want to do that. Okay? I'm pretty good at this. You know why? Because before I shoot, I imagine myself doing it. And I know that if I shoot normally, I hit the rim, at least. And I show all my classes. So when we're in sports psych class, I'll say, hey, watch this. And I'll spend some time imagining it, and I believe it's going to happen. So I want to be that guy. Normally, they pick the most unathletic looking tool that looks as though he's had a few beers, and they're like, hey, you come along, because we know you're going to miss, we don't have to give you the tickets. I'm like, hey, I want to have a go. Because here's the deal. I can imagine it happening. And I believe fully that I can do it. So if I'm taking a corner, ball's here. Okay, going that way. I'm going to be Beckham, right? Get it? You know what I mean by Beckham? Right. I'm going to whip around it. And I know I'm going to ping it in at pace. I would do this. Put the ball down. And then I'm in. Just 2 or 3 seconds before. 2 or 3 seconds before I take a penalty. I don't want to be using imagery and closing my eyes when the game's going around me. Make sense? So I'm going to start at home. So this issue of vividness and control. I'm going to give you an example, and then you're going to write your own imagery script. And then you're going to practice it for 5 to 10 minutes every day in real time. That's your homework. Okay? I'm going to sit now so you can check out my cool shoes. All right, so here we go. Close your eyes. Close your eyes. Place yourself in a familiar place where you usually perform the game of soccer. It's empty except for you. Stand in the middle of the field and look around. Notice the quiet emptiness. Pick out as many details as you can. What does it smell like? What are the colors, the shapes and forms that you see? Now imagine yourself on the field, but this time you're surrounded by spectators. Imagine yourself getting ready to perform. See the spectators. See your teammates, your coach and the opponents. Try to hear the sounds of the noisy crowd, your teammates' chatter, your coach yelling encouragement, and the particular sounds of your sport. Recreate the feelings of excitement and nervous anticipation that you have you have before competing. Now think how you feel. I have another one for you. Maybe you're taking a penalty. See the ball. See the colour of the ball. See the lines. See the roundness. Feel the ball. Feel the movement when you're shooting the ball. Hear the sound of the ball hitting the back of the net. Okay? And open your eyes. So, here's your homework, and we can start now, because we're going to do this for like 5 minutes. Does anybody know any of the senses? Hear, see, smell, touch, feel. We won't do taste. Okay, or you can, whatever. Okay? Taste the ball on your tongue. I've done it. Alright, so now what I would like you to do is I would like, on your own, not with your partner, I would like you to write your own imagery script using the words hear, see, smell, feel. Hear, see, smell, feel. For anything you like of that skill, maybe. Am I boring you? I'm doing my best here. Are you? I know, they want so much, these coaches, don't they? You just want to go home. Okay, so just write down an imagery script for the skill that you were thinking of earlier on. Okay, and this is not for anybody else. This is just for you. And what I would like you to do is spend 5 or 10 minutes. Do you not have a pen? Okay. Somebody else have a pen? Nice. Okay. Got it? Okay. This is not for you to share with other people. It's none of their business. And all you want to do is write down your script and use this as your statement when you are using imagery. And you're going to use it tonight for the next couple of weeks, just to get used to being able to then bring it eventually into practice. 10 minutes a day, in real time. You can also remember to use motivation imagery. You can use arousal imagery when you need to be able to deal with anxiety. You can see imagery as a strategy, and you can see it as a skill. So write down your script. But know this. If you think it won't happen, it will happen. So don't imagine anything negative. Don't see yourself missing a shot. Don't see yourself dropping the ball. Give yourself something positive to do. As we start to understand that if we can train the psychological, it will help the physical. So one of the ways in which this is going to work is if you buy into this. And I understand some of you might be thinking, oh gosh, this is a bit weird. And I get that, I do. I would just ask you to trust me. Because if it works for Alex Morgan, it can work for you. Once you've finished your script, I want you to read it, not out loud. I want you to read it and imagine it, and learn the script so much that you can then regenerate it visually in your mind with all of those other senses in about 4 or 5 seconds. But in order to be able to do that, you're going to have to practice it 5-10 minutes a day. Once you've finished it, close your eyes. If you can remember it, we'll read it over and over again, just for the next 30 seconds. Just remember, the more vivid your imagery is, and the more you can control and make that image do exactly what you want it to do, the more experienced you can become. You got it? Have we finished? See, hear, touch, smell, vivid and controlled image. Vivid and controlled image. Now let's close our eyes and we're all going to practice. Okay, everybody close their eyes. Keep seeing that image over and over again. Keep reminding yourselves of those words over and over again. 10 minutes a day,